Hi everyone, it's Bryce Archer from NayOrts here. I'm here at the kitchen board just to go ahead and do this demonstration for you guys. We sent out you all your meal kits. I apologize first off from myself and all of my staff. I'm sorry that it took so long to get out to you tonight. There was a quality issue that we made sure that we rectified that before we got any food. Specifically, when we are dealing with seafood, it is very important that it meets the quality standard that is regulated by the government, but also for your safety, that you're not going to get sick off the food that you eat. So I'm going to go ahead and go right into showing you how everything is everything's done here for sushi. Now, some of these items that you're seeing on your menu tonight actually aren't on our menu, but they're things that we're looking at bringing in the menu in the future. So there's some twists and turns along the way, but there's also some familiar things. So if you've ever made sushi before, I'm sure you'll be able to follow right along. And if this is your first time, we'll make sure that we go ahead and go through all the steps and not miss any of the important things. So that way, when you make sushi at home, with that map that you received and any nori that you go ahead and pick up for yourself, it'll turn out excellent every time. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do, just because of speed-wise, the rice is going to take the longest. The reason why the rice takes the longest is we have to cook it, but then we also have to bring it down to room temperature. And if it's not room temperature, things like the sashimi, but also some of the other ingredients will spoil, but also it's going to turn your avocado, it'll turn your vegetables, and it just won't be quite as well. So I'm going to turn the camera slightly here. We're just going to step outside quickly, get a quick hand wash, so that way the food that I'm preparing is as clean as I can. And then we're just going to move to the sink right beside me here, and I'll show you how to properly wash rice. Sorry for the laptop in the way, I just didn't have a long enough cord here. All right, so we've got our rice here. Every one of you have received a portion of rice, and it's 1 portion of rice to 1.5 portions of water. And you'll end up with, if you take your first number and your second number, so in this case we have 3/4 cup of rice, and we're going to add in our water into that. And we're going to end up with roughly 2 3/4 cups of rice, and that should be enough for everything that we're going to make here. So you want to make sure that your water is cold. If it is warm, it could actually start cooking the rice. The reason that we're washing the rice is to get rid of all the starches on the rice. And this will just help prevent it being too gummy. So I'm going to show you here. The rice is in the water. I'm just going to do a quick hand stir. And I'm going to show you as we dump it all over the counter here. But this water here is very murky and you can't see the rice. So you want to rinse this rice until the rice is clear. You can actually see the rice grains inside there. Wipe so we don't get that on the laptop. And this will be about 3 to 4 rinses. The colder the water, the quicker it'll happen. Sometimes you might need 5 or 6 rinses if you're doing quite a bit of rice. Normally, I would recommend using a strainer for this, but in this process here, I'm just going to be pouring the water off. As long as it's good and agitated, the rice will lose all that starch. Now, if we're using a big batch of rice like we would use in the kitchen, of course, we're going to be putting that into a large colander, and it's going to take a couple minutes to happen, but also there's going to be a lot more hand work involved. You got to be careful not to be mashing the rice, and especially when it's going into that sieve, you want to make sure that you're not mashing it into the sieve. You want to be gentle with the rice. Traditionally, it would be called bruising the rice. Now, obviously, the rice here is not fully living; it is in a dormant state, and it has all removed. So we've got 3 rinses in here already. It's a lot cleaner. We can see the rice quite clearly. We're just going to give it one more rinse here. All right, I'll show you what this looks like again. This time I'll try not to spill all over it. All right, you can see that the rice is clear through the bottom. You can actually see the water here, whereas before it was all murky. So that means that this rice is clean. All right, so we've got our 1 pot of rice, so we're going to go ahead and measure our water, put that in, and we're just going to move it to the induction. So I'm just going to adjust everything here. That way you can see me from the other side of the counter. All right, now we're on to our induction cooker here. Like I said, the rice is the longest part of the cook. Probably should have tested this out before I used it. All right. I'm not going to bother using induction. I have a wonderful stove here right behind me. We'll put that on there. That way, if you're cooking at home, you can follow along on the stove method. The induction might not quite be the same as you'd have at home, but if you have a standard convection oven or the glass top ovens, this will actually work very similar. You're going to bring your rice to a boil. As soon as it comes to a boil, if your element cools down quickly, you're going to turn it down to low. If your element cools down slowly, you want to remove it from the heat. You don't want to burn your rice into the pot. You want to let the rice just steam in the water. And this is going to roughly take about 15 minutes. And in that last 5 minutes, so we're going to wait 15 minutes and then 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to actually make sure that comes off there and just finish steaming. And that will allow the rice to actually get rid of the excess moisture. But also, that's what's going to make the rice very nice to work with. Okay. In the meantime, we've got several other menu items that we get to try out today. Well, the first things first, you'll probably want to go ahead and start with your drink. I apologize. Most of the theme that I like to go with is Canadian and local. Montpellier is a Canadian company. However, it is owned by a larger subsidiary and it's not a local company. Now, we do have a local company called Canadian Gold, and it's out from around Steinbach. However, for this event, they didn't have the equipment in play. So their bottling plant actually was not able to produce the required soda water for this. So we went with another product that I'm familiar with, something that I know is going to work very nicely with the syrup. Okay. Now you have this syrup here that it almost looks like a barbecue sauce, but as soon as you pop it open, you'll know that it is definitely full of ginger, and it is definitely strawberry. So this is a syrup for a pop. Typically, you would be going out and you'd be buying a large brand name syrups, but we went ahead and made something in-house just to demonstrate something that we could look towards summer about, a little bit with the warmer weather. So you do have an ice bag inside of your kit. You can feel free to use the ice out of there. It is sealed. Or you could go ahead and just choose some other ice. I'm going to go ahead and pour off some of this bottle here, just so we don't overflow. Now, each bottle should give you about 2 full drinks out of it, 3 full drinks if you're talking a can drink. But the reason why we're pouring that off is so that when I pour the syrup in, it doesn't overflow, because this is going to really agitate the carbon dioxide in there. You want to make sure that you do this slowly so that you don't bubble over. And I went a little too fast on there, and it would just come bubbling out. So as long as you go slowly on there, you'll end up with it all in the container, and hopefully no messes. So on the bottom here, everything's settled in the bottom. We're just going to do very gently. Remember, this is carbonated, so you know what happens when you shake a can of pop. Very gently rock that back and forth, and what that's doing is that's mixing that syrup into it. Now, these strawberries in here are a local strawberry. They're actually from a local strawberry grower. So we went ahead and used that. The ginger is what's called the ginger bug. It is a fermented ginger process that really is how probiotic carbonated drinks originally would have been made. And that's why we went through that process. Now, that process takes quite a bit of time, and it's something that we start from a starter, just like you would have like yeast for bread, or if you're familiar with kombucha. Sorry, just checking my pot there because we're getting a lot of smell on it. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about rice, make sure that you always cover it. I'm using a very small pot, so make sure that your pot lid fits with the pot. All right. And this time around, because we're nice and gentle, we didn't get any oil over. And I'm just going to add that right into my other drink here. All right, then you've got yourself a very nice glass of ginger ale. This is not a high sugar ginger ale. It's quite low sugar. And also the ginger fermentation process will eat some of that sugar as well. So that gives us some extra carbonation, but enjoy. You'll notice that the cups are labeled compostable. The straws are compostable. And unfortunately, there's a couple items in there that aren't. Just for food safety, we can't serve them that way. All right. So we've got our rice going. The next thing that you're going to want to start is your miso soup. Miso soup is dashi broth that's already been brewed for you. And then we're going to go ahead and add the miso paste into it. So your miso paste is this little guy right here. Now, miso paste, you can add as much as you would like. However, you want to use it sparingly. It is quite strong. So your broth that you have would came in a bag for you guys, and that bag of broth, you just go ahead and put it onto the stove and heat it up slowly. It has already been brewed, so it's got lots of flavor to it. We're just going to add the miso to it, and the miso itself will just bring that soup together and take it from dashi, which is a traditional Japanese stock, and make it into miso. Now, dashi is loaded with umami. It uses kelp, it uses bonito flake, and it also uses dried shiitake mushrooms. And all three of those are strong in umami, which is the flavor that really, when you have delicious food, it's the flavor that sticks in your mouth. So when something is delicious, the flavor that sticks in your mouth, as in the residual flavors that you're having, that is probably the easiest way I could describe umami, because traditionally it'd be considered the sixth taste, which it wouldn't really, it's really hard thing to describe, but you'll definitely know when you've experienced it. And all throughout this meal here, there's lots of umami, so that way you're left, even though everything's very light, you're going to be left very satisfied. Right. So we're going to go ahead and heat that up. I'm just going to move that over here so that one of my coworkers could take care of that for us, and then we're going to add in that miso paste quite sparingly. And of course, this is to your taste. Now, I would recommend that bowl that you received of the miso paste could do 2 to 3 bowls of soup. If not, it could potentially do more. That all depends on how you'd enjoy it. The next item that we're going to get into is the salad. Now, this is a Japanese style coleslaw, and you received it in a package quite similar to this. And it is very light and refreshing. Now, there is quite a bit of ginger throughout this meal. Ginger itself is a probiotic, meaning it is good for your digestion, and it's good to have in your digestion, so that way when you're eating these different foods, specifically when you might not always be used to them, that these foods will be able to be digested a lot easier. Okay, so we've gone ahead and unwrap that salad there. We're just going to go and grab ourselves a bowl, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to mix that dressing into that. So the dressing is going to separate out. It is a very traditional dressing here. It's got a little bit of the Asian fusion in there. So, but then we also put our own take onto it. So it's a very simple dressing, and that has in there, it's got some rice vinegar, some ginger, some garlic, a little bit of seasoning in there. But then what brings that all together is it's got a little bit of peanut oil in there, and that just lets it coat your mouth. Oh, and sorry, I'm missing one other thing. There's a little bit of white pepper in there too, and that just gives a little bit of boost to it. All right, and our rice is boiling here. Now, if you have a larger pot of rice, it definitely could take longer than this pot took. So I'm just gonna expand that just so I can see what's going on a little bit better. All right, we've got our coleslaw here. We've got our dressing here, and you can tell the dressing from that it's going to coat the top of the container slightly, but also it will separate it to two areas. Just give it a quick shake. Now, the dressing in here is good enough for several salads. You don't want to overdo that. Of course, everyone's different. Some people like a lot of dressing. But I'm just going to just use a splash. So again, this is a light salad to enjoy. Plating wise, we're just going to plate that right back onto here. Of course, if you want to use a fancier dish, but I just want to show you on the plating here, the last step that we're going to do. And this is what really makes the salad just pop. And that is your pack of sesame seeds, okay? Now, this sesame is great for all sorts of different things, but it's also the garnish on the salad. All right, there we go. We've got our Japanese style coleslaw. All nicely dressed up there. Now, my light is washing that picture right out. We've got our coleslaw all done. Just gonna tidy up a little bit here. Okay. Now, the crab that you received tonight was already shucked out of its shell. The reason why we went ahead and did that for you guys, I do describe in there how to shuck it. However, that's going to make the crab shell very sharp. And I was just really concerned for some of you first-time people that would have been working with crab for the first time, that you would have cut yourself. Now, the other thing would be ending up with shell inside there. I'm going to go ahead, though, and just show you my process. I just need to run in and actually grab my cleaver. So I'll be back in a moment here. All right, that rice there is boiling very well. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I have a glass top on it, so I can actually see the rice, what's happening with it. In this case, I'm a little concerned about the rice burning. I'm just going to remove from the heat just to help prevent any burn happening. All right, so this is a Jonah crab claw.
Now, the reason why we chose a Jonah crab claw is because this is a wild caught crab. A lot of crab is wild caught. However, in the process that they catch this crab is very sustainable. What they do is they pull crabs up off the bottom, and all they do is remove one claw. And then the crab goes back in, and crabs, being a crustacean, are able to regrow claws. Okay, so this would be a Jonah crab claw. You can actually find these at local stores, and I recommend trying these out. They're great for if you want to make a seafood salad, but also when you're making your sushi, this is a delicious crab for it. So in the process of showing you how to crack this open, this is where the area that I was really concerned about people hurting themselves. That's why the crab that you received, we already went and removed it from the shell. It is the same crab. It's just been removed from the shell, and it'll just prevent a lot of hurt and pain, really. So we're just going to lay the blade flat on here. Now I'm going to put the blade away from yourself is always best. Now you're going to put your hand flat on here. I recommend in the instructions putting a cloth over it, so that way that your hand is not directly on the blade, because you do not want to cut yourself on this. And we're just going to press down. All right. And there we go. We went ahead and cracked that shell open. We're just going to remove all that shell. Now, like I said, in your case, we've already gone ahead and done that for you. But as you remove it, you're going to be just left. You're going to be left with just the crab meat here. This is already comes pre-cooked. If you were to buy this at a store, and in most cases, crab that is parted out is going to come pre-cooked. Just because if you don't cook the crab, it's going to go very mushy when you freeze it. Right. So we get up into the claw portion here. Now, if you're working with Jonah crab claws, they've got quite a large claw. All you do is you just grab the claw here. Shell's dropping like crazy. But you're going to grab the claw at the front, and you're just going to give it a quick pull. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to break the claw itself away from the other portion. And there's a bit of meat inside there that you can go ahead and fish out. But then this other portion of meat here will actually just remove out very nicely and cleanly. Now, in the middle of this, there is basically the tendon, so to speak, of the crab. You want to make sure that you remove that. It's not going to be pleasant to eat. Now, each of you would have received a container that contains all the crab for all your meals. Now, this crab is very delicious and there's lots of flavor to it. So if you're feeding for 3 people, then you would have received a package for 3. By itself, when you're making sushi, the ingredients don't look like much. However, once you bring them together and you lay them out correctly, you'll end up with a delicious result. Each roll of sushi is approximately going to take about 1.5 crab claws. Now, when you are working with Jonah's crab claws, it is a grading system. You're buying it by weight. So you definitely aren't going to expect every single crab claw to be the same size. And we definitely noticed that this evening as we were working with the crab, this afternoon. That some claws will be very small, other claws will be quite big. All right. So basically, we're end up with 2 portions here. We've got the meat in one portion, we've got the claws in the other, and all the shell. The shell is all garbage. Some people would have this crushed and added to a garden, but for the most part, the shell no longer has use. I do have one more claw here so I've got the other half of the claw here that we're going to use. And that's exactly why we're careful. End up with a bit of shell inside my hand. Nothing, not actually hurting me, but it can just break apart. So I'm just going to lay that knife flat again. Be careful with it. Give it a quick crush. Like I said, this is the other half the claw that we got. And this will make us a full calamari roll. Or sorry, California roll. And again, we just want to make sure that we're not leaving any of that bony structure inside of it. That bony structure is just almost paper thin, but it's very hard, so you'll know it's there. All right, we got one more portion here. And there we go. Now you're approximately going to use, depending on the crab, you can use anywhere from 25 to 40 grams of crab per roll. Now that's all of it, depending on how big your roll is going to end up. But we're just going to go ahead and move that to the side. And as always, make sure keeping our work surface clean because we are using different types of ingredients. All right, so we've got our delicious drink, we've got our salad, and our miso soup is heating up. It should be ready shortly. Miso soup can have several things added into it. You can put tofu into it. You can put different types of garnish into it. But miso soup by itself is a fermented bean paste is what miso is, and the dashi is again that umami, and altogether it's just very satisfying. And you don't need lots. That's the beauty of sushi. Is it's not something where it's you're just stuffing yourself and stuffing yourself it as much as when you eat sushi, you may feel that way. You just eat, but it is designed to eat it very sparingly and enjoy the experience. The little portions and the little bits here and there of the different pieces of sushi, or in this case, the bento meal, is what really makes the whole experience. All right, and I'm just going to check where my helper was, and just so we can finish that miso soup up, and we'll finish up our rice. All right, so I'm back again here, and I've left that rice. So your rice may take slightly longer. It's all about heating up, getting it to the boil. The next step in the rice process is we're going to actually start cooling it down and get it down to room temperature. But first, we want to get it down enough so that we can actually start mixing it. So we're just going to grab ourselves another dish to work with that. Now, ideally, you want a flat bottom dish made out of glass or wood. Metal may actually react with the vinegar that we're going to use, and so I don't recommend doing that. When you're mixing this, you want to make sure that you use a rigid plastic or wooden spoon. Again, we want to make sure we stay away from the metal. Rice at this point is going to be moved around quite a bit. Metal may very well mash that rice, and we want to be careful to be gentle with it. Not bruising per se, but if you were to mash it all up, you won't have a very pleasant experience. When you make sushi correctly, you're going to be able to see all the different aspects of the sushi. All right, let's see if it'll come out of the pot. All right, we're just going to just top it up a little bit here. There we go. Okay, now you have your little L container, sorry, V container. I was reading as an L. This the V for the vinegar. Now, each one of these containers is for one portion of rice. If there's 5 people, you have 5 containers. So we're just going to mix that in. You just want to make sure that you go around the outside first. And you're going to use a folding action when you're mixing this. You're not going to shake it up or mash it. You want to fold. So you're going to pull from one side over to the other. Okay, I don't have an actual rice spoon here, but we have an excellent flat bottom spoon right here. So we'll go ahead and demonstrate that for you. Go up and over, up and over, up and over. And we're gonna spread that out. Now the next step that I recommend, just to help prevent your rice from drying out, you're just gonna set your spoon across the bowl, or if you have a proper wooden sushi bowl, you would go ahead and put the cover on at this point. But then we're just gonna cover it with a wet cloth. So I'm just getting that wet cloth over here. We're just gonna put cold water on it. We've got our cloth here. And we'll come back occasionally and we'll stir this up and make sure that it's staying well mixed and cooling down. So we'll just set that right there. Okay, and we're just gonna bring together our next set of ingredients here. We're gonna cook our teriyaki chicken, and then we'll go ahead and check that rice one more time, and we should be able to start assembling everything. Okay, so all of you have your mats here. Now these mats are either will be sealed or have been washed. I recommend wrapping them in saran wrap, and that'll just help keep everything clean, but it'll also help to make this mat last a lot longer. In our kitchen, we make sure that they're constantly wrapped and kept clean. This will help prevent, getting seafood into your chicken or vice versa. It just makes for a cleaner working environment. So we go ahead and wrap that. Now I'm going to, I've got a new mat, so I just have to step to the other side of the kitchen to get that wrapped up. We'll be back in a moment. Got our big container of wrap here. Obviously, yours at home might not be quite this big. That's quite all right. Lay that down. Your saran wrap at home was probably going to be only as wide as the mat, which is perfectly okay. In that case, you would probably want to wrap it one direction and then wrap it the other direction. There we go. Got it wrapped one direction. And then we're going to go the other direction. I'm just folding in all my edges here just so that when I'm working with the nori itself, which is the seaweed, we're not going to end up with any loose tails getting stuck in the meat. And there we go. That's just a quick wrap on there, just to keep everything clean. Now, the nori that you received is this product right here. It is a local product, so we're making sure that we are using product that is Canadian as much as possible, if not Manitoba. Unfortunately, a lot of ingredients in sushi are imported. They have to meet certain criteria. With fish, sushi grade fish, meaning fish that I can serve raw to my customer, it has to be kept at a certain temperature, which is -25 for a minimum of 10 days. And that will help kill all the parasites. If you don't use the right grade of fish, when you eat raw fish, it can make you very sick. There could be parasites in there, but also there's different types of fish, and depending on where they come from will depend on the types of parasites that are there. And it's important to make sure that you understand where your ingredients come from. My recommendation, if you're working at home, you can always use the imitation crab, which is a delicious product, the Jonah crab like I showed you, or if you go into a supermarket, make sure that when you are buying that fish, that it says on there sushi grade. Unfortunately, For most consumers, it's not going to be available to you locally here. But if you are traveling into Winnipeg, there's some great supermarkets there that do sell sushi grade products. Now, it'll actually be labeled right on there that it is sushi grade, and that is specifying that is okay. It's very important that you're not eating raw ingredients that aren't properly the Nordic, and you can see it very nicely in the light. And then the other side, well, it looks shiny in the light too, but the other side is rough, and it has a texture almost like the texture of the mat. The mat texture is going to go face up. Okay, and then we'll just set that aside here, and that is ready to go. Let's check our rice one more time and give it a quick fold. We're looking for this rice to come down to a temperature which is okay to touch. We're not quite there yet. We probably need another 10 minutes, which is excellent. That gives us time to cook our teriyaki chicken. There we go. Cover that back up. Now I've got some fancy bottles here to dispense my teriyaki out of, but you would have received your teriyaki in a small container. There's one that's very liquid-like, definitely soy sauce, and then you have your second one, which is quite a bit thicker. It's the middle of those three dark sauces, and that'd be your teriyaki. You'll pick up the scent of ginger and the scented garlic out of it. The soy sauce is going to smell like a sweet version of soy sauce, and that's how you'll be able to tell the differences on them. Now, let me check on the legend here. The teriyaki will have a Q on it. So I've got my pan here. We're going to go ahead and cook right here. And then we've got our chicken. So it's approximately 2 pieces of chicken per person. We'll let that come up to temperature first. I just need to transfer the scallops into the fridge. Just one that should keep the scallops cold, just for a better texture. Okay. And we're coming up to temperature on there. We are going to slightly steam the chicken, but also it's good to brown it at first using a little touch of oil. This is all up to your preference, but I recommend heating the pan up, adding some oil in, and then you're going to put the chicken in, put a little water around it just to cover the bottom of the pan, cover it for 2 to 3 minutes per side, flip it, and at that time you're going to add your teriyaki sauce. Water over that. Now the elements that I'm using on this commercial stove will heat up a lot faster than they will at home. So things might take a little bit more time, which is perfectly okay. There's no reason to rush sushi. It is something that is a bit of a process and a bit of a zen, so you'll be able to enjoy it that way. I'm just going to quickly check on the miso soup. I do believe it is ready here. Okay, and then we have our delicious miso soup here. Now, once you get that miso all mixed into it, it'll give it a little bit of a cloudiness to it, which is perfectly okay. You'd add a little bit of tofu if you were doing this at home, maybe a little bit of spinach or some onions on there. But miso by itself is excellent just as a broth, and it's going to be nice and refreshing. So try not to spill all over the rice again, but the broth here is now nice and cloudy, which is exactly how we like it. We're just going to set that to the side.
or in your case, if you're following along, feel free to start enjoying some of this at any time. All right, the chicken is already cooking on the one side, and we're just going to go ahead and wait a couple more minutes, and we're going to flip that over. Okay, so the next step that we're going to go into is the wasabi. Now, comes in a little green packet, and it's a little green powder. So that's, this light is way too bright. Let's just turn that off for a sec. There we go. Maybe we'll just operate without the light. But it is the green powder here. You're going to do 1 part wasabi to 1 part water. So this little container that you received in is excellent for mixing up your wasabi. I've got 2 of them here. So we're going to put wasabi in the second one. Then we're going to use that first container, wherever that line was. We're going to put a little bit of water in. Okay. Now you may want to transfer this to a bowl so that it's a little easier to work with. Maybe a cup is also a great way, but use a fork just to mix that all around, and you'll get that wasabi to a nice paste like. I actually put too much water in here, which is okay because I have more wasabi. Now wasabi's shelf life is only a few hours because it will start to lose its spiciness. Didn't have a full container, so I just went and grabbed my half container that was sitting there. That was the mistake. Okay. So it's always easier to start with less water, and then you can add more wasabi powder. Sorry, you can add more water after. I'm just going a little bit backwards on it. There we go. Our wasabi's coming together nicely. Water in there. I'm just going to transfer that back to the original container there. And the wasabi is good to go. We also have some ginger, which is your pink ingredient here. And the ginger is traditionally used to be eaten between different types of sushi. It is a cleanser, like I was explaining before. It's a great digestive. All right, our chicken is ready to be flipped. And we're going to go ahead and add our teriyaki onto that. Let's pull the lid off this here. So you're only adding half the teriyaki there, which you see. The rest of it will be as a garnish for on top after. But now that that chicken is flipped over, we can go ahead and recover it. It just needs a couple more minutes. Give me 1 second here. Let's clean the work surface. Excellent. Okay. We're just going to tend to our rice one more time here. That rice here should be probably slightly warmer than room temperature, but at the same time, this rice is excellent. And you'll feel as you're stirring it, and you'll notice it in the bowl that it is a bit sticky, which is perfect. And I can smell that chicken is ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer that chicken over to another dish. I'm just pushing the chicken around in the sauce here just to help get the flavoring on all sides. And that way this chicken is taking on a delicious teriyaki flavor. Okay, so now we're on to actually assembling our sushi.
So we've already got our mats all set up for yourselves there. And we're gonna start with the California roll. That'll give time for that teriyaki roll to cool down a bit. But the next thing that you want to get yourself is a bowl with cold water on it. This will help prevent the rice from sticking to your hands. All right, we've got our bowl here with some cold water. Got our rice. If you're making lots of sushi, you want to make sure that you're leaving it as covered as much as possible. And if you have a larger bowl, you just peel back a little bit. So remember, it is shiny side down. Wet our hands, both our hands. And I'm a left-handed person, so I might do everything a little bit backwards. But whatever hand that you're most comfortable with, you're gonna go ahead and grab some rice. Preferably try not to get too big a handful. Make sure that your other hand is wet. I'm just gonna start in the bottom corner. Slowly push the rice down onto there. And if your hand is wet enough, it shouldn't be sticking to your hand, which is a good sign. If it is sticking to your hand, just add a little bit of water, and that rice will just fall right away. Too much water, and you'll actually be wetting the rice, and it won't adhere nicely to the nori. Now, each portion of rice that you received will be enough for 2 rolls per person, as well as enough to make sashimi. All right, so we've gone ahead and added all that rice onto there. Walking my cloth into my rice. And we'll just push that back off to the side. Wet our hands again, and then we're just going to gently press that rice down. Now, to know that you have the right amount of rice, you still want to barely see that seaweed underneath. So if you can just see the nori underneath, that is excellent. And then when you press it down, you want to make sure it's nice and flat. You're going for about half a fingernail width of rice, or more or less if you were to stack 2 grains of rice on top of each other, that's perfect. We're going to grab it by the top here. Now you want to do this in one smooth motion so that all the rice doesn't fall off. But you're going to grab it this way, come forward, and this little tail that you have left here, which is your last couple inches, that we're just going to tuck in. Now that would be typically used if you had quite a large roll, but in the rolls that we're doing, they're a medium-sized roll, so you're going to end up with about 2 inches worth. Okay, and again, we're just going to clean the surface here, specifically with this rice, so that way it doesn't get a big sticky mess everywhere. There we go. Now we have our tray of cucumber and we have our avocados. And the reason why we send these avocados on whole is because of the temperature. Normally I would just cut them and send them out for you, but I sent them out whole just because that cold temperature is really going to wreak havoc on that avocado. Okay, so I'm going back to the cleaver again here. I will switch over to my sushi knife shortly, but the sushi knife only has a blade on one side. Use whatever is most comfortable for yourself. Preferably, you want to use the sharpest knife you have in the kitchen, which works the best. That way, you're not cutting the avocado. You're not actually mashing the avocado. So I just did a ring around the avocado, and you'll just turn that avocado slightly, and we end up with 2 parts of the avocado. Again, I don't recommend cutting into your hand unless you're confident in your knife skills. You don't want to get injured because you are working with a knife. But we're just going to cut through that avocado, and that way we're going to end up with several pieces of avocado. And I did about 6 cuts in here. This is all going to be dependent on how you like your sushi and how much avocado that you would like in it. So I like to do about a 1/4 inch wide piece of avocado in the sushi, just so that way you have a nice balance. I went ahead and laid down 3 pieces of avocado across here. I'm just going to move slightly closer to you. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead. Where the crab? Oh, here's the crab. Go ahead and move that crab back in here. Sorry about that there. Just had a call come through. So we've got our crab ready to go here. Now, each portion of crab you received, if you're just for a single person, that'd be enough for 1, 2, 3, and so on. So we're just going to lay that crab out. You want to leave about a finger width along the bottom of the sushi. Sorry, along the bottom of the nori. That way, that we're actually got something to fold over, and so all of our ingredients don't come spilling out as we do the fold. The reason why I put the avocado down at the bottom is because it's the most structured item here. When you're just beginning at making sushi, you tend to be that the avocado is going to come shooting out. And that's what we really want to avoid. Okay, and our next step here. Our next step here is adding in the cucumber. Now you may have extra cucumber, and this is all how you like it. I like to do about half a finger width of cucumber on there, so that way you have the same amount of cucumber as you do avocado, but you also have about a third more of the crab. Now we're going to grab the mat by the bottom here. If you've done your flips correctly, you might need to slightly adjust everything, but it's perfectly all right. You want your sushi to be in the middle of this. We're going to grab it by the bottom, or put our fingers right here. We'll pull that up and over. Let the mat touch the nori here. That'll make sure that you start that shape. And making sushi for the first few times can be a little bit difficult to get that beautiful shape when you cut into it. And then we just continue the roll. So I'm just pulling the mat, and I'm using my hand. My other hand here is the guide. And that way that the sushi itself is going to gain a very nice shape, just like that there. We have a very nice roll. Now, if your roll is misshapen or whatnot, if you're not, go ahead and just move it back to the middle. Be gentle with it, don't squish it too much. I'm just going to push those vegetables that I knocked out back in, and then there we go. We have a California roll. So we'll just set that to the side there, and our teriyaki chicken should be ready to work with. So I just need to dry my hands so that I don't stick all the nori together. Okay, and again, we're going to move into our second sheet here. Time to close the window here, so we're going to have a trap shortly. Perfect. Great. We're going to go back into our rice. Now, you should be left about a half cup of cooked rice by the time you've done this. Now, you may end up putting a little bit more rice, a little less rice. That's perfectly okay. You don't want to have too much rice in your roll because it will overpower it. But you don't also want to have too little rice in the roll because that's really what's going to keep its shape and make it look beautiful. Hands getting a little dry. Again, just quickly wet that. Okay, now we ran into a slight mistake here. We don't have enough rice to fill in the whole thing. Now, this is a common thing that's going to happen when you first make sushi. All you need to do is just find where your thick areas are, and you're just going to move them over and make it more even, and that way you'll end up with a nice, even layer of rice. Now, I just wanted to demonstrate that for you just so that you can see what happens if you don't evenly distribute your rice, and you'll end up with a misshapen log. Okay. I need both hands, right? Not just one. There we go, and we've got that nicely flattened. And then these edges are nice and square, so that way our nori is not going to have too much rice on the other side. We flip that over again. Again, we've taken that tail, we've just turn that back. Now, you may end up with no tail, you may end up with lots of tail. However, I recommend about the 2 inches is perfect. Maybe slightly more than that if you want a more full roll and a little less rice, which is perfectly okay. We're going to take our chicken. Got our chicken here. Now, if you're not familiar with cooking chicken all the time, make sure that when you cut into it, that it is not pink in the middle. 165 degrees Fahrenheit. If you have a thermometer, because you want your chicken fully cooked, so you don't want to eat undercooked chicken. Right now, my sauce bottles nozzles are plugged here. So we clean that quickly. Our teriyaki sauce is made in-house. So it has lots of garlic and ginger in there, and sometimes a piece just gets stuck in there. Let's do a little bit of teriyaki over top. This is our house mayo. We make this every couple days. And then we also make our own spicy mayo as well, which is basically our house mayo, which is a Japanese style mayo. And then we just mix some hot sauce into that to give it a delicious flavor. Okay, so we've got our avocado again here. Now, each avocado that you received, probably more than enough, but that is perfectly okay. We're just cut this one piece a little thick. There we go. We've got it all nicely laid out across there. Again, we've got that little tail running along the bottom, so that when we roll it, we're not going to end up with our ingredients spilling out all over the place. Okay. Got the flap here coming up and over, pressing it down, making sure we get that contact. Now, you might end up with sauce on the inside, which is quite normal, just depending on how much sauce you add. And then you're just going to keep that roll going. I got some sauce that spilled. I'm going to go back and get a reshape of that roll. And again, we've got a delicious chicken teriyaki roll. Okay, now I'm just going to switch to a cutting board, and I'm going to switch to my sushi knife. I'm just going to do a quick cleanup of the work area here, just so that way we can just finish up our meal, and then we'll get into the sashimi. All right, here we are. Had to get a wooden board there because we're using a traditional knife here. And we just don't want to damage the knife. It's hand sharpened. Fortunately, it requires a lot of care. Okay. So we have both our rolls of sushi ready to go. I made the mistake here of touching the sushi without wet hands. Okay, so you want to make sure that you get some fresh, clean water for this next portion here. I'm just going to empty out the bowl that I had and refresh with some clean water. The sharper of knife that you can use, the better. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water down the blade. This will stop the rice from sticking to the blade itself. Now we're going to do a series of cuts. First down the middle. Then we're going to cut into quarters. Make sure that your blade isn't getting too smeared. You don't want all your ingredients smearing and coming to the outside of the sushi. There we go. And there we end up with a delicious chicken teriyaki roll. So the California roll, once it is cut, it is ready to eat. Chicken teriyaki, you might want to decorate a little bit more, make it look a little prettier. So in this case, I'm going to put a little bit of the teriyaki over it. I'm going to put a little bit of mayonnaise over it. And then we got that sesame seed that we have. Excellent. And so for our other roll, we'll go ahead and cut it exactly how we cut the last one. There we go, we got our California roll. And the last step, we'll be making our sashimi. So I'll just go ahead and quickly prep that. Right back at home. They're always working with a clean surface. I've got rice all over my hands here. And we're going to go ahead and get out our scallops. Okay. So with that last portion of rice that we have in our bowl, we're going to go ahead and make 2 to 3 pieces of sashimi. You're just going to take a small bowl of rice, set it in the palm of your hand. You're going to take 3 fingers and cup the rice. You end up with a nice little sashimi ball here. I'm just going to use my mat just to plate this on because I didn't bring my fancy plate tonight in this kitchen. And we've got our nice little ball. Wrap with a scallop. And I recommend using 2 pieces of a scallop on there. There we go. And then we're just going to put that back in their hand. And just going to gently form it. There we go. You continue that with your other pieces of scallop. But there you go. That is how to make your sushi here at NayOrts. And I hope you enjoyed. Again, thank you for joining in with the PCRC, as well as us here at NayOrts and Real Manitoba, which is from the provincial government. Again, thank you for everyone for joining in on this evening and for following along. And I hope you enjoyed learning something new and getting into a new environment where we can enjoy some delicious sushi. Thank you.